Hey, hello, I'm Wren Ribeiro, and I want to connect with you about peace and justice. We are interviewing women who labor for peace, as we have forever and always will, until we all feel peace in our homes, our workplaces, our communities, and especially our bodies and minds. This initiative is named Mujéres Co-Labor for Peace. It's a show of intimate conversations with justice workers who are healing their self and communities from the effects of misogyny, capitalism, and climate change. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Wren Ribeiro and I wish you complete wellness and lasting peace. I tell you, every time I say that, it gets a little bit more meaningful for me. And I really like the complete wellness and lasting peace feels so important. So I just want to say it over and over again. Hello again. This Mujéres Co-Labor for Peace show is about taking steps to heal the effects of misogyny, capitalism, and climate change. And we are back with Renee Toll DuBois, farmer, a ceremony holder, a queer and curious social justice explorer, and my friend. Last episode, we got into a lot of really exciting conversation about the meaningfulness of ceremony on the land, and we talked about some indigenous roots of Celtic roots, European indigeneity, and how we're taking baby steps to find our way back to that rerouting process. And we ended with a celebration of Saint Bridget. In this episode, I think I'd like to go a little bit more deep into some of the healing that we can do to fortify ourselves against misogyny, which is the, kind of a foundation of some of the struggles as a woman in America, for sure, but also in trying to heal colonization, decolonizing our minds, unpacking whiteness, and so forth. So that's what's on deck for this episode, getting into some of the gender issues as well, of course. So let's check in with our heart as we do. And Renee and I, we can do our little bit of our ceremonial rooting and coming together, and some breath work. So how about we light our candle and do our water and then check in with our hearts. This is exclusive to the Wren and Renee episodes here. I offer this flame to continue growing our relationship, our friendship, and the catalyst for bringing fire, passion to our listeners and viewers. And this water. Ooh. You want to do a blessing? We're blessing the east, the south, the west, and the north, each other, the computer, and our bodies of water.
And giving thanks that we have water,
Giving thanks.
fresh water, safe water.
Ah, yeah. That's so big. Renee, how is your heart in this moment?
Oh, it's going a little quickly. It's so exciting to be doing this. So meaningful. I'm really grateful, Wren, that you are offering these sessions and reaching out to us all to think about these questions and see how to actualize them in our life, and the permission you give that we can take small steps, even to be thinking about these questions as we try to answer them. This is our purpose at this time. So I feel just so thankful to have this opportunity to share with you today here, and to be on this journey, not the struggle. It is a struggle sometimes, but on this journey together. That's so meaningful to have a colleague, a sister, a relative, sibling on this journey.
You're making my heart smile.
Beep, 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 beep.
Oh yeah, and my heart is feeling much more peaceful than it was in the last episode. I feel really rooted in our practice and in this moment. I feel more hopeful, which was your word last episode. I'm feeling that in the moment. I'm feeling this solidarity with you, and I'm feeling it in my cells, like feel stronger. And I loved your words of, sibling and sister. And one of the things that we learned in the Wide Awake course, Recalling Our Ancestry, is that we can choose our ancestors. It's like a really radical notion. But we can feel so close to people that are not our family members. Why not just say, yeah, you're family, like we're sisters? That's all it takes. And that connection just really gets reinforced. And we need more bonds, more ties, more, not like hamstring, but we need more connection, more weaving in this current time. And I like the fact that you brought up this moment, this time, because it can feel so like the movie Everywhere, Everything All at Once, or Everything Everywhere All at Once, brings to mind how multifaceted we are and relationships are. And one of the things I was thinking about after we talked last time was how individualistic and isolationistic. In fact, someone just yesterday was talking to me about how she feels really like isolated. She on purpose. And I was thinking about how if we feel so overwhelmed with life, that's a natural instinct to just kind of like, what can I manage? What can I control? My own personal space. So building intentionality in relationship and friendship and solidarity and sisterhood, and really weaving that fabric with others is the call of the time. And so how do we do that? You do that on the land. You do that with your woofers. How else do you do that? That active intentional weaving in your life?
Well, perhaps you can bring the heart forward for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be surprising, but we breathe every day, all day, without thinking about it. We are hardwired as part of the vast and complex network of life. The fact that we breathe oxygen, that oxygen originally came from one of our most ancient ancestors, the blue-green algae, that converted. So there was abundant water, abundant carbon dioxide, and plenty of sunshine. Boom, created glucose, but also it's a byproduct in our system, but we're glad for it, oxygen. Tiny little critters that if they had a thought, would they be saying, is this really worth it? Just this little bit of oxygen? And yet, from billions of years ago, our relatives, the plants and animals, have been renewing that, but that it's around us. We can only get it because our most ancient ancestor, the stars, when they exploded, we know our Earth has iron in the center. Well, that iron is in us. That's the hemoglobin. And that's the only way that the blood, we can get that oxygen delivered to our cells, and the carbon dioxide, 2 oxygens, put back out. And our body just does this. So we think of breathing as our respiratory system, but it goes through the blood system, the circulatory. So all of this shows we are part of this vast, complex web of life, of interdependence. It's not made up. It's not artsy fartsy. It is real. It's real. We couldn't breathe if we didn't have plants, if we hadn't had the stars, those elements. So your heart, how is your heart? Every breath you take is connecting you to your ancestors.
Wow, you must have been an amazing science teacher.
Oh, it's nice and strict too. So, middle school may have liked me, maybe not, but I was hands-on too. So that's the good side.
Nice. And we're sipping this delicious water. Water is life. Thank you for that. When I hear you speak like that, I feel such joy and like in trust, I guess, that the natural world's gonna, and we hear this, the natural world's gonna be fine and take care of itself. But I think that I just feel like there's hope for humanity as well in noticing, in slowing down and noticing. And I hear that there's this movement of napping. There's a nap minister. I read a book recently of people really reclaiming rest as resistance. So slowing down is a way, and I've recently been walking because I'm not using my car. Walking is helping me to notice the earth better. And so I just want to say thank you for bringing those memories back, alongside this other idea that I woke up with the other day about these confluence of capitalism and climate change, and the wars that are happening, and there's that on the one hand, and then on the other hand there's this peace pilgrimage from Philadelphia to DC, and these rallies and the rabbis for ceasefire and all these wonderful things that are happening. So I've been kind of holding on to this swirl. What do you respond to that, Renee?
Well, I'd like to hear more. And I'm thinking about your opening around wishing us all deep, real health and well-being and peace. And I just think this is a place where we can see the link, and it's taken me a long time to find it, but once I get there, to capitalism and to misogyny. Because if we look back at nature, everyone belongs, everything belongs, everything has its job. And, the blue-green algae, that's also known as cyanobacteria, because that's its evolutionary path. They had to adapt. They're still here today for 3.9 billion years later. I mean, billions and billions, because of adapting. And so, yes, they explored what was possible. And there was early on a reality of, if it wasn't possible, you die. But they knew they had to ensure good enough life for their next generations. And if we were dependent on the food and were had a short supply chain, like I do as a farmer. I see the food. We'd also know that we're related, that I have to take care of it, that if I harvest everything and kill it, where's the next set of seeds going to come from?
Mm-hmm.
And so our Mother Earth, where you were talking last time about the connection with the mother and gender and its relationship. What are our familial relationships? We are all relatives. And I have to take care of you as a way to take care of myself. And we know this every day. I piss you off, you suddenly get all pissed off. It's pretty unpleasant to be around, and boom, gone. No, that's where that regulating that we're doing in the embodiment exercise is keeping the vibe positive, open heart.
Mm-hmm.
This links. So what, you talk, we're holding these two things of hope and despair. Our hope is in remembering what our relationship is to each other, to the earth, not as some remote. This is real. I mean, if we're made of these same elements. And while it's exciting that we have the progress in the labs and creating synthetic foods and stuff, it's not who we are. We're of the earth.
Yeah.
And the water, and we do need clean water. Our bodies will adapt. We haven't died yet, but there's a lot of mutations happening to us, not just to frogs and everything else.
The rats that are.
And what happens in another part of the world really does happen. And I'm of a generation, I remember Chernobyl, major nuclear problem, and people became aware of the cycles of wind. There are patterns of wind and weather. And so Europe was getting contaminated, the rest of Europe, and the milk wasn't drinkable and various things. When Fukushima happened in Japan, so now it's coming across the Pacific Ocean to the United States. This isn't just, the hippies talking about, however you want to call them, these great ideas and something. This is actually what's happening. Our weather does go from west to east.
A butterfly flapping its wings.
Yeah. Flows.
Yeah.
Acid rain in the Midwest is destroying our buildings here in Massachusetts. The acid coming down with the rain. The ocean is acidifying, not because of right over it. The weather is moving. We are related.
Mm-hmm. And it's yeah.
There's a lot of oceans.
Planet, yeah.
One planet, but it's an integrated, vastly complex network of relationships and responsibilities.
Yeah. And when you were talking, I was thinking about the belonging to the land. And I've heard you share your experience in Central America of how that was so clearly held by everybody that they belonged to the land, and you kind of got that while you were there. I was starting to think, well, yeah, I am because you are. I get that through my Buddhist practice, the order of interbeing with Thich Nhat Hanh, and the continuation, and we are the clouds, we are all of the elements of this and that, and all these wonderful ways to feel connected, to belong to the global sangha. But I hadn't really thought about it. I am because you are, in terms of the elements, the water, the bacteria. And if I were to greet the land each day to say, I am because you are, as a practice, as a ritual, and I don't want to put it on me like, I have to do that every day. And if I don't do that, I'm not good. I just want that as an invitation to be, walking on the land and greeting it as I am because you are. It just feels really nourishing to me. And that's one of the, I take so much away from every time you speak. Like I just constantly like yum yum yum.
There's something else that you had asked me, and I'm remembering a practice I have, and I've had for probably since Katrina.
Mm.
I don't know, from some time. In an emergency, most likely you are not going to be, none of us are going to be with our family or our friends, our familiar. And I used to do work where I was going in and out of buildings and up and down elevators. And so I began by, maybe it was the Twin Towers. I don't know. We've had plenty of emergencies. When I got on an elevator, looking around and saying, these are the people I may have to count my life on. We'll be saving each other.
Wow.
So I bring strangers, the woofing, I bring strangers into my house to keep practicing being comfortable with people I don't know at all.
Mm.
Because in a practical sense, I mean, I've talked the conceptual thing, which is very real. We have to care for each other who disagree with us, who don't look like us, who are doing the work we don't want to do.
Mm.
Our lives during COVID, a lot of people went to work, whether they wanted to or not because they had to, but I got to go grocery shopping because someone else was working the grocery store.
Exactly. The
We
front line
have
work.
to take care of each other because our lives depend on them. They have, and their families have produced things for me
Mhm.
at all levels, but without practice. So that's a practice I have of interacting with strangers. And I'm working towards people that are not just disagree, but are hostile a little bit in their disagreement, to
I
somehow keep an open heart and try to really listen. And I had a wonderful, during COVID, one of my woofers interpreted what I was saying. I'm immunocompromised, so I wasn't getting the vaccine. This was early vaccine days. He decided I was an anti-vaxxer and could not tolerate even being in the house. He arrived one late afternoon. He left he left before breakfast the next day. Now I had another one who was a fairly devout Muslim, was a young man, so his family allowed him to be with me as a lone woman. And he totally believed in the worldwide conspiracy that this wasn't a virus and everything. And that wasn't what I felt. But we were able to completely argue with each other. How can you think that? Tell me more. And then come make a meal together, eat, have a great time. I mean, I've stayed in touch with him.
Nice.
And so that how we manage difference
Mhm.
is really important. And whether you can do it because somehow you can say, oh, this is another human being, or I'm just practicing to take care of myself, come from a very selfish place, but okay, you're in the elevator with me. My goodness, I'm going to have to trust you, or whatever. But a practice to deal with difference is critical. We've talked about how we're similar.
Mhm.
There are real differences that our systems have imposed, and just each being is unique.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I am going in multiple directions as I usually do. And I want to start by saying I was going to ask you a question about healing from this cultural conditioning of patriarchy. And specifically, like about like how does the anti-racist practice work in this way, and how does it support our hearts when we see symbols of violence, like someone I know next to you who has a sign, one of your neighbors, that says trespassers will be shot. Like that kind of person is like embodies that fear, right? And then the other thing I want to say is this book that I'm reading, oops, Doppelganger by Naomi Klein, and it's looking beautiful in this in this fake studio montage I've got going on. Doppelganger talks very much about anti-vaxxers and the fomenting of all of this conspiracy to create division and discord amongst ourselves, to make us fear one another, like that sign. I'd like to take a deep breath around that, because there's so much of that fear. How do we continue to do anti-racist work, bridging work, building the rainbow bridge like you have on your head, of connection and weaving, like we've been talking about, with the nonstop assault of some of these forces. Do we do what Loretta Ross kind of says, is say, there are going to be 25% of the people that you could just not talk to. Maybe the person with the sign is just someone you cannot talk to. But someone like you had that experience with your woofer, very different opinions, duke it out, you respect each other, and they're part of the 75% that you can engage. You know, you're talking about your practice, and it sounds very sophisticated, and something that you've been practicing a long time with the elevator and with the people that you welcome into your life. Is there a way that you can make a distinction so that you don't ruminate on the possibilities that you might not have with certain people?
There are different times, different ways that we're interacting with people. And I think letting that guide us as to what's the agenda in this interaction, as opposed to putting a lump, you're in a category now for all interactions. Yeah, I was in a conversation just a couple of days ago. So there are many people who feel it's important and it's our right to defend ourselves with weaponry, that we should be able to bear arms. And that person was saying, well, so then you support the right of self-defense. So that means you're supporting the right of the Palestinians to defend themselves. Now and she was sharing that it was like, no, those two communities wouldn't be seeing eye to eye. And yet she was saying, wait a minute, if I'm hearing you right, you feel this. And so engaging right where the person was to actually think about, what do we value? Mm-hmm. Because I think we don't ask ourselves, well, what does this really mean? We just quote it little, and I do it too.
Yeah, we don't ask ourselves, but then we also don't ask each other. We can make assumptions about what other people feel rather than say, hey, how do you feel about that paradox?
And I read recently, and I feel this myself, but I'm someone who totally asks your politics, talks about religion, talks all those taboo topics. And what the person, this quote was, when we shy away from that and get torn, we don't know how to talk about politics, or that we don't know how to have conflict. We think conflict is really, if you disagree, and it's all bad, as opposed to, well, maybe if I talk to you and you disagree, I'm going to, hadn't thought of that. I hadn't thought of that. Or they might say, well, I don't want you to be right, but I guess you're right. Or something.
We might grow, weave together, right? Yeah.
So that's why else it's important for us to try to have they'll feel difficult. They might not be difficult. And that's what I'm saying. On an elevator, you have no choice about who's on that elevator with you. I mean, you could choose to get off, but if you've got to get to work or to your appointment and the elevator breaks, that's who you're with. That's who you're with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's an interesting experiment. Next time I'm in an elevator, I'm going to be like, hey. And they're going to be like,
I started to see my biases in an elevator with total strangers where we weren't saying anything, and I still were bringing biases in. So it's a fun little thing. You hop in an elevator just to go for a little ride. of your biases.
Sweet, sweet.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
or at the cashier or anywhere, right? Standing in a line with someone, being in real
Well,
life.
this relationship to the earth and to each other, I think, is key. Key.
Thank
Key.
you. Thank you so much. Another wonderful conversation, very intimate conversation about some of the things that we experiment with to build bridges, to try to minimize differences and celebrate our belonging to each other. I am because you are. Thank you. Let's take a deep breath and blow out our secret candles.
Thank you.
And another sip of water.
To life.
To life. I am Wren Ribeiro, and I thank you for joining.
This initiative is supported by InnerFortune, the full life self-coaching journal that is now digital. Join us for peace, and thank you for your heart.